February minutes. Jeff, are the minutes okay?
Yeah, the minutes are just fine.
Okay, good. Thank you. Chief, how about the monthly statistics? We'll get right into it.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Tracy. Our monthly statistics package is included again this month for review here. I start off that package with our calls for service count for the month of February. Again, it was a short month, and this was through the 26th of the month, indicating that we had 345 calls for service in February, which is about 60 calls for service less than the previous month in January. And again, that's the reduced number of calls for services, most likely due to the fact that it was a short month. Our calls for service list is included there on the next few pages, as it normally is for the month. I'll skip ahead just one page too. I included a heat map. I apologize for the heat map that's included on page, it looks like it starts on page 14 and 15. This was a heat map that was generated from a different software that I normally use. We had some changes in our IT structure that changed our public facing IP address. And so I wasn't able to access the software that I'd normally access to create heat maps. And so this only showed a kind of a quasi map of the reports that were taken in February to the 26th of the month. I did email the both of you a actual heat map from this correct software that I was able to make last night. And that plots all of the calls for service, and you should have that in your email just for information there.
Yeah, it looks good too. I think Councilman Sproul brought this up last month, and to me it looks good. I don't see any pattern going on, because I think that's what, Jeff, isn't that what you were kind of looking for, was see if there was a pattern?
Yeah, you see kind of we've got hot spots in one part of the town than others, so we need to basically, and I'm sure the chief's well aware of it already, concentrate efforts in certain parts of our community rather than other parts, but I'm sure that's being done.
Yep.
Sorry about that. The heat map will show the hotspots. Currently, the map that I emailed indicates the hotspots are kind of in the populated areas, which come along with the higher number of volume of folks, the more calls for service. But if there are in the future, if there are any areas you would like me to zoom in on a little bit more closely, please let me know, and I'm more than happy to produce those. The copy that I emailed, I did take a snapshot of the various quadrants of town to kind of give you a little bit finer detail there.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a look at that after this meeting.
Okay, and that brings us to our mental health and displaced persons contacts for the month of February. We're right on par with the amount of calls that we normally get. Looks like we have about five calls for service for mental health contacts and one for a displaced person. And that's again, that's pretty much on par for the amount that we get on average per month within the city here. And this set of calls for service, actually, there were no repeat people that were involved. They were all every call involved a different person. Let's see, moving on to our training hours for year to date for 2025. We sent 4 of our staff to peer support training, which was a 3-day training class. We're adding them to the East Pierce peer support group, which is one of our multi-jurisdictional kind of task force efforts to reduce costs. by sharing resources. And we've got 4 officers on that team now. So you can see those officers on the list that have the higher number of training hours that was contributed to those that class in those days that they were in training. We also had a department training just this last was on Tuesday. I'm sorry, Monday of this week, where we had training on our new fingerprint machine. We'll be rolling that out shortly here, with probably within the next week or two, once we get our policy finalized. But we did have department training on that, as well as some training on immigration enforcement and working with the federal government. And so those hours should be significantly higher from our previous meeting. And that kind of brings our statistics to a close there.
Looks good. Jeff, you got any questions?
Just a couple. As far as the required hours, 24 hours per employee, is there unique classes that comes up with that 24 that they have to participate in, or is that any training that they do counts towards that requirement?
So it has to be a CJTC kind of authorized or class in order for it to count. Training that is specific to the department, for example, something that only Ording has that other cities don't, would not count towards that 24 hours of in-service hours. It has to benefit the officer regardless of what department they were to go to now or in the future. There are some classes that are mandatory each year. For example, the CIT or the yearly mental health contacts training that's put on by the CJTC is one of those that's a requirement every year for officers to complete. And those are video classes that are assigned by the CJTC at the beginning of each year. But in general, any other training class, for example, EVOC high-speed vehicle driving, that's a class that counts towards in-service, as well as all of the other core training classes that the CJTC teaches.
Okay, that explained that. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Okay, if there's no other questions, police staffing.
All right,
study.
so for the police staffing study, during our last meeting, if you remember, our plan was for me to kind of put together a list of the estimated costs of adding 2 additional officers. So I went ahead and kind of compiled this spreadsheet that you'll see on starts on page 20. And this estimates the cost of adding the spreadsheet applies to one officer. And then that number was doubled essentially, and then put onto a budget request form to kind of show the total of the cost for that. I also included a spreadsheet on page 21 that kind of breaks down the cost or the amount of money that the budget would have to be increased in order to kind of support those positions. And I split that into 3 different scenarios. One was a scenario in which we added 2 officers in 2025. The next scenario added 2 officers in 2025 and then 2 in 2026. And then the third scenario, 1 for each year from 2025 to 2029. And that kind of broke down the amount that the budget would have to be increased in order to support that each year.
Right. The one thing that I notice, and this just might be the way it's done, is when we talk about an officer, adding an officer, we're adding a vehicle. Is that normal procedure, that we just add a vehicle for every officer?
Well, because officers are assigned vehicles, take-home vehicles, we wanted to kind of capture the total cost of that it would cost the city in order to bring that officer on board. So all of the equipment, all of the vehicle that would be issued, and all of that to account for all those expenses. And so we wouldn't have to later kind of make up for those extra costs.
Whenever an officer is added, well, I think I'm going in and out or something here because I don't think I'm getting everything that's being said, and I apologize if I'm breaking in the middle of you talking.
No problem. We're able to hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah, if you didn't hear what I last said, I was just saying that I've compiled this list to kind of account for all of the costs associated with bringing an officer on board, including all of the equipment and vehicles and everything. So you could kind of have a better understanding of, you know, the impact to the budget, rather than just the, you know, the salary and benefits package, and then having to try to find those other costs later.
Right. No, I appreciate that. One question to Scott, is this something that we run by the finance director to see kind of where that fits?
So I believe the chief worked with the finance director to compile these expenses. The one thing that I don't believe, and chief, correct me if I'm wrong, that we've kind of done is work through the process of identifying how we'd actually pay for these things. You know, we've been in transition with our finance department, and so that would be our next step in the next month or two, is to work on kind of, okay, now we know what the costs are. How are we paying for this?
Okay. That was just my question on the whole thing. So
Sure.
thank you.
Yep.
Jeff, you got any questions?
I know you had asked a question regarding the vehicles, so I just wanted to clarify. So every officer that we do hire gets their own vehicle going forward. Is that correct?
Correct. We currently assign each officer has a take-home vehicle that they are assigned, and that actually helps the fleet by you know, keeping vehicles in better condition. They take care of their vehicles much better than if they were pool vehicles, which get a little bit more abused.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay, if there's no further questions, automated school zone enforcement, RFP.
Okay, so the school zone enforcement, I put together this is a draft RFP. It still needs to go through our legal review before we actually post this on the to the public. But I threw this together. It's a general package, general RFP for the bid or the system that we would like to purchase, and it covers all of the aspects of the project and the technical requirements that we have for the camera system, and how that interacts with you know, the court system, and as well as the ticketing process and how that would be handled.
Is this, I'm not, it's going out as RFP. Is there a lot of companies that do this? Or I know, I think putting this information together was, we were talking about one company, and then we realized we have to put this out. I mean, is there half a dozen companies out there that do this, or is it limited?
No, it's I would say probably no more than half a dozen. There's not a huge number that companies that already provide these services. There are a few main, you know, larger companies that provide most of our surrounding agencies with this service. However, you know, obviously this would allow you know, an independent contractor to come in and try to, you know, win this bid over by, you know, bidding on it. And
Right. Okay. So it's still being processed. We're not ready to set it out or anything.
correct. Yes, I still need to meet with or have our legal department review it, and as well as meet with Scott for some final review of it before we actually post it on the website. But it's most of it is compiled here for you. And
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Jeff?
This-
No, I'm okay with it.
Okay, I mean, it's still in the process.
Right, exactly.
And sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt there. I did want to add that it also includes those provisions that we had previously discussed about reserving the ability for the city to make changes to those school zones in the future after the contract period starts, if we needed to do that.
Right, right. Well, with the bond issue with the school and everything, you really don't know what's gonna go on there as far as where the school zones are gonna be.
Correct.
Any other questions on that? Do we kind of have a time frame when that might be ready? to go out?
I don't expect it to take any longer for the final review here before we get it online any more than I'd say 2 weeks at the most.
Oh, okay. So then we might have something by next month then to push forward.
It would probably be May, because usually we advertise these for 3 weeks. And then, so that would be, so if 2 weeks from today we advertise, and then 3 more weeks, so that's 5 weeks, and then it would take a couple weeks to score. So realistically, we'd have something back to the committee by May.
Okay, okay. So we wouldn't take the proposal to the study session so the whole council could see it, or we wait until we see something come back?
Yeah, so typically, if staff issue RFPs without kind of consent of the council, council just
Okay.
reviews the final thing. But what I would say, if there's no support for this in this committee, then it'd be nice to know that now, so that we don't spend a bunch of time advertising, making vendors think that we're interested in a system, reviewing, scoring, having legal spend time and effort on this, and then bringing it back to committee and having the committee say, just we're not interested in moving it forward. So it'd be helpful to know that now rather than in 2 months. And if
Well, I wasn't suggesting that I don't want to move it forward. I like the idea. So
sure, no,
I'll let
I know.
that
I'm
out
just
right now.
yeah, no, I understand. I'm just saying that this is a pretty big body of work, and I don't want to just spend staff time if there's no appetite from council. So if what I'd say, Councilmember Tracy, if you think it would be prudent, we'd be happy to bring a kind of a buttoned up RFP back to council, and try to get a temperature there, so that, like I said, we're not just spending time doing something that no one's interested in.
Right. I personally, I mean, I would like to make sure that the council is backing it. And from what we brought forward before, I think they are, but
Sure.
like you say, I think it might be prudent for us to do that so that we're not spinning our wheels.
Okay, well, we will work on having this buttoned up for study session in March, and I don't think that really impacts our timeline a ton. We should at least have kind of preliminary feedback by the May meeting, but we'll keep you guys posted on how that's going.
Yeah, I think in the last study session, we brought this up, and, there's a couple that, 1 or 2 that may not agree with this, but it seems like the rest of the council was agreeing to this. But I think if we bring back the formal, ready to go RFP and say, okay, this is what we're going to submit, yes or no, and then get that kind of feedback, that would be great.
Perfect. We will plan on that.
Thank you.
Thank you for the support.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, of course. Chief, anything else?
Not for this item.
Okay. There's nothing else. We'll go on to council goals.
Okay, council goals. I continue to work with our city prosecutor on our update of the criminal code here. I haven't had a big chance to work during this last period. However, I've got a meeting set with her after our next court date, which is 2 weeks from yes, I'm sorry, 2 weeks from Tuesday. And so we plan to get a little bit more work done on reviewing those changes and reporting back for our next meeting.
Okay. Anything, Jeff?
Nothing from me, thanks.
Okay. Okay, if there's nothing else, code enforcement, community development.
Good morning.
Morning.
Code enforcement for the month of February was pretty limited in terms of citizen action request form responses or creation of any sort of new documentation for code enforcement, like initial contact letters or, you know, kind of more formal violation letters. It's been a lot more active code enforcement, sort of boots on the ground, surveilling the community. And that's yielded some activity between code enforcement and police in terms of trying to do a better job at cracking down at some of the illegal parking activities in the downtown core. This seems to have been quite on the uptick lately since the new auto shop came into town. And so we're trying to just keep our arms wrapped around that as best as we can. Otherwise, Kurt also spent a couple of days in the month of February doing some important training. One is I'd asked him to participate in the city's CPR training. There was an extra seat available, and you just don't know what you're going to come across in the community. And he also attended a free training that was provided for code enforcement officers by Pierce County in Tacoma. And that was really engaging and insightful to be able to kind of experience how it is that other cities around us kind of address some similar code enforcement action, kind of what their typical recourse is. So that's code enforcement in a nutshell for the month of February. And I'll take any questions if you have any.
I have one question. I had a citizen, unfortunately, I wasn't at home at the time, but stopped by my house, and I didn't get the whole picture of what he was talking about. Something about a parking issue. And I think it was at where we had some parking issues and some code enforcement stuff over by D&D, that new building that they were wanting to put in the yard, that building there. Somebody.
I think that you cut out in the last bit of your question there, Councilmember.
With parking or something. I don't know what it was. And they were upset that the city was not responding to him or something. I'm bringing it forward just to maybe I can get clarification on it.
Sure. Apologies, Councilmember Tracy, but the kind of meat and potatoes of your question was glitched out. So I missed. I heard that we're talking about the Ording Yard, 130 Corin. Is there's a concern expressed by a citizen that somebody's parking there illegally?
No, what it was is somebody was thinking of putting in a daycare there, and they were having issues with the parking or something. And I don't know what it all entails. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. No, that's okay. I've been in contact with that person. There's a woman in town who owns or operates currently a daycare center out of her home. She used to operate it out of the Wild Rose, and then in COVID, to consolidate costs, she moved that into her home and got a permit for that. We're working together right now on a solution for her. Right now, what she's looking at is trying to get over into the Aero Lumber facility.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we're all over that. I don't know that
Okay.
there's necessarily a parking specific issue that she's conveyed to me so far. She's just looking at the feasibility of going through the permitting process to set up a daycare center in a sort of interior component of the Aero Lumber shop.
Oh, okay. I wanted to have an answer for that citizens to say they're working on it or whatever.
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
know anything about it.
Oh yeah, she and I are in contact, so she knows a couple of avenues to be able to make happen what she wants to see happen. Truthfully, this is also going to yield in some recommendations by staff during our more holistic municipal code update to provide a bit more clarity and direction on the siting of daycares and preschools. What she's operating, what she's wanting to operate is really a preschool, and it kind of in the past has been governed as a daycare in Ording because we don't have an outright permitted use for preschools. We don't discuss preschools at all in our code, so it's a bit of a miss that we need to correct this year.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it. I can get
Sure.
back to them on it.
Sure, no problem. And as follow up to the complaint that you shared with me from a citizen in December, Kurt and I did work together with the Kansas Street citizen to ensure that the blackberries along their property have been cut back. So that's been taken care of as well.
Oh, good. I appreciate that. One of those two people that are the main two people that have been kind of talking to me, but every time I get to the post office, I run into them, it seems like. So I appreciate you following up on.
Sure, no problem. Any other questions for code enforcement?
I've
That's
got,
from me. Thank you.
thank you. So, then I guess we go title 5 and 7.
Sure, I'll take this one. Staff have been working on titles 5 and 7, which is in relation to our code enforcement titles as well as our right-of-way titles. We met with the attorney, it was either the very beginning of February or the end of January, and they're working on revisions to one of the titles. And we're meeting again with the attorney to review edits as well as discuss, is it the right-of-way or the code enforcement portion? I just don't.
Title 5.
Title 5. Okay, got it. To review Title 5. So we continue to make progress on that, and hopefully by, I don't know, sometime in the spring we'll have edits for council to start reviewing on those two titles.
Good. Jeff, you got any questions?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Okay, does anybody else have any questions?
No, council member, we do have one additional item that we'd like to bring to your attention here regarding firearms. We were notified in December of this year, or I'm sorry, last year, by the Criminal Justice Training Center that they had an incident at one of their academies. It was the Spokane Satellite Academy, in which they had one of their students that was in training at the range had an incident with their firearm where it went off. It discharged without any interaction with the firearm on the range there, and it was witnessed by one of their instructors. And so we were noticed by the CJTC in December that they were temporarily prohibiting students from being on campus with those firearms while they assembled a work group of stakeholders in order to review the incident and find out if that ban on the firearms needed to continue or be permanent. The firearm in question was a SIG P320, which just happens to be the same firearms that we carry that are issued and purchased by my predecessor a number of years ago. But the Academy just this last week has issued their final report on that incident. And that report basically indicates that during their work group meetings, and the work group was comprised of departments that carry those firearms, such as Bellevue and Kirkland, as well as, I believe, some Renton officials, as well as some sales reps, as well as SIG reps from the SIG company itself. And the report indicated that they reviewed all the information that came about during these work group meetings, and the director of the academy came to the conclusion that the ban on these firearms needed to be put in place permanently. And so they are effective immediately. They've banned these firearms from being on their campus or at any of their satellite campuses or any location that teaches CJTC sponsored training events. That this decision kind of puts us in a little bit of a bind, as it because the CJTC is a basically a policy kind of driving force in the state. It puts us in a bind and makes our continued use of these firearms basically indefensible moving forward. So we are currently reviewing, looking at different firearms in order to switch to, but we just wanted to bring to your attention that we will be switching firearms here in the near future.
What do we think the estimated cost of that's going to be?
Well, the department currently issues these firearms for officers for both their primary and their backup weapons. So there's 2 full sets of firearms that will need to be replaced because the backups are of the same model. So we're looking at, depending on the new firearm that we decide to go with, upwards of maybe $20,000.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we don't know yet, but that's. So understand that the firearm went off by itself?
Yes.
Nobody was touching it or anything and it just went off?
Yeah, so over the years, there's been quite a few reported incidents that this particular model will discharge on its own without any interaction with the user. Some departments, there are some videos online of police departments in which a firearm will just go off by itself in an officer's holster. SIG identified early on that there was a problem with the firing mechanism on the early models of the firearm that they manufactured. They provided replacement components to remedy that problem. The firearms, when we made our purchase, were actually after the date of the problem, and so per SIG, the firearms that we have, our serial numbers, as well as anything that's currently manufactured, to them, there's no problem. They say that there's currently 4 safety mechanisms that have to that protect the gun from going off by itself, and they can't reproduce that. But these discharges seem to keep popping up throughout the country, and it obviously made the academy concerned enough for student safety that they decided to ban them from their property, and that decision has kind of trickled down to us and making it difficult to be able to defend if something were to happen.
Exactly. It doesn't sound like it could be limited to students. I mean, if they're going off by themselves, it's just easy to go off in your holster the same way.
Correct.
Do you have an estimated time on when this might happen?
So we're required to have those switched out within 90 days of that memo coming out, which was just last week here. So we've got about 80 something odd days to have that done. We do have a plan moving forward. We currently have some vendors coming in today to just show us some firearms, and we've got I've got our sergeants as well as a few others in the department that we're gonna go out and test fire those and try to come up with something that is comparable for the officers, but at the same time may save some money moving forward here, and our ability to reuse some of the like we've got some sights, for example, that are on our current firearms, we may be able to save and use on a new model if it's compatible.
Okay. Do you anticipate, though, I would think anyway, there's going to be some additional training that's going to need to happen for each officer?
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be a tight schedule here, but we believe we'll be able to do it without problem. We obviously would have to make the purchase, the firearms would have to arrive, and then we'd have to have range training, and then requalifications for each officer in order for them to carry those on duty.
Okay. So Scott, you think, do we need to move something forward to study session to inform the rest of the council, or how does that work?
Yeah, we can just maybe we can write up a short staff memo just outlining the problem and what we're doing to move it forward. But because every department in the state that owns these SIG guns is going to be looking at acquiring new firearms.
Oh, boy.
Our concern is there's going to be a bit of a run on kind of the most commonly carried alternatives to these. And so I'm going to just direct the chief to purchase once they make a decision as quickly as we can, something reliable and safe, so that we're not in a position that we're waiting 180 days or something to be able to get alternatives, because as far as we're aware, any sort of issues after this 90-day period become a liability of the city, and it's uncovered by insurance. So we want to move quickly here.
Yes, definitely. Understandable. If there's a lot of agencies that are carrying these things, it could be crazy.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we'd be happy to kind of provide a broad overview of the problem and the steps staff are working through to kind of come into a better position.
Right. I just think it'd be best so the whole council knows exactly what's going on.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, this is one of those kind of unbudgeted things that occasionally pop up. So
Yes.
the good news
definitely.
is we've got healthy fund balances. It's more of a nuisance at this point than anything else.
Right. Right. Okay. Jeff, do you have anything?
Yeah, so chief, are the officers going to have to return their service weapon and their backup?
Yeah, yes. So those will all be collected, and then how those are disposed of is still a question that is yet to be determined here. We're still speaking with legal about how we would be able to surplus those. Regardless, they would be officially surplused and then disposed in some way that's legally defensible.
Yeah, I just want to make sure like the officers weren't keeping them, and then again, something happening, and then they say, well, the city gave it to me, and so. Yeah, as long as we collect them all and then there's a proper disposal, whatever that mechanism is. Yeah, I'm good
Yes.
with that. Okay,
Uh,
thanks.
Yep, absolutely.
What has SIG come out, has the police guild or anything gone to SIG and said, hey, we want some reimbursement for this? The guns are failing.
So yeah, let me take that one.
Okay.
So SIG's been sued over these unintentional discharges or uncommanded discharges over the last several years. There have been a number of jury, or at least one, if not a couple, jury findings for the plaintiffs against SIG. But SIG continues to deny. As far as I know, all of those verdicts are on appeal at the moment. SIG continues to deny that there's any problems with their firearms. The other kind of problem that we're running into, and this is just the state of affairs at the federal level, is there's the United States Congress has more or less removed any sort of liability from gun manufacturers. They're not regulated by typical consumer protection laws. And so there's really no recourse once you purchase a firearm if the manufacturer is denying that there's any sort of defect with that firearm. So right now, it's just a problem that we've got to solve with our own funding. And to my knowledge, there's not really a way to get anything, turn them back into SIG or get any sort of refunds for these.
Okay. Be nice if it could, at least some kind of reimbursement, but it doesn't sound
Yeah.
like that's going to happen.
It doesn't sound like it either.
Any other questions? Thanks for bringing that forward, because that's kind of an important thing for sure. And it sounds like it just happened, or it's a new thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's it. If there's nothing else, nobody has any other questions. Thank you for everybody being.
Councilmember Tracy, I might add one note. Councilmember Sproul, do you want an update from CGA yesterday on the contract that
Sure.
we're trying to enter into with PBS?
Yeah.
Okay,
Please.
yeah, of course. So we reviewed the recommendations that both of you received from the city attorney and kind of the legal analysis behind some of the concerns that were expressed. I was asked at CGA to attempt to convey your concerns, Councilmember Sproul, with that language. And so I just shared what you had shared at the study session that, there's a, issue taken with the potential that PBS could profit off of marketing our name and our logo without us receiving anything in turn. And so we reviewed the recommendations of the attorney. The CGA felt comfortable with the motion that you'd made at the last council meeting to move the item forward and include some sort of caveat that staff prepare some sort of written documentation prohibiting the use of our name and logo by PBS. And so the item got moved forward to the next regular session next week.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think now we're good, Councilmember Tracy.
Okay. Okay, if there's no other questions, I guess we'll close the meeting. Thank you. Sorry about the in and out on my end.
No problem. Enjoy wherever you're at.
Okay.
All
Thanks,
right, thanks,
Jeff.
everyone. Yeah,
Take care.
You bet.
See you guys.
bye.